You see before you two rather disappointed men. If you want to find out why, carry on watching. Hello, Michael here.
Rupert here.
Now, and it must be said up front that we're always keen. What are you giggling about? It must be said we're always keen, are quite excited when a news story that supports the idea of people coming from Wales to build the first instance of Stonehenge, and the idea that they used cattle as traction to bring the bluestones all the way from the Preseli Hills to the Wiltshire Plains, it always has us excited. And so when an article comes along, or loads of articles in the media come along that seem to be claiming a paper that claims to prove it, or at least hugely support the idea, is very good, because we've been proponents of that idea for a long time. I haven't heard it so much from many other quarters. Can you remember many other people saying, oh, they must have done it with cattle as traction?
No, and not at all. In fact, without a shred of doubt, we said it first. But no, I mean, it's only latterly that people have been suggesting it, really, in the light of some of the excavations in Eastern Europe and things like that. So no.
So that's the kind of outline, that despite the fact that up front we've said we're a bit disappointed, it comes from a place of wanting everything to be true and everything, to fall into place as far as that is concerned. I think the best idea, Rupert, is to, there have been so many headlines. I think that's an important thing. Have you got a few headlines available to you there that helps where we're coming from on this?
Just a few. Prehistoric cow tooth supports Welsh origin of Stonehenge. Cow's tooth strengthens links between Stonehenge and Wales. An ancient tooth is reshaping what we know about Stonehenge. The story of Stonehenge's construction just became clearer. There's hundreds, literally. There are hundreds of them, and they all say the same thing.
But the overarching impression is that this study goes a long way to supporting the idea that the bluestones came from Wales, dragged by cattle. I think the best idea, though, is that I start reading from one of the articles, so we've got a backbone to critique what's being said. I think that's the best thing. We've chosen to read from the Smithsonian Magazine's output, not for any particular reason, but I think it sort of generalises, encapsulates the whole story.
Yeah, the Smithsonian always gives a good, solid
overview,
view of what they're reporting. So,
Yeah. So the Smithsonian Magazine headline is "A Neolithic Cow's Tooth Helps Point to the Mysterious Origins of Stonehenge's Iconic Stones. Isotope analysis of a molar from a cow's jawbone found buried at the monument provides details of the life story of the animal and how it may relate to the construction of Stonehenge." That's a pretty picture, which we all recognise.
It's a very pretty
Yeah.
picture.
About 5,000 years ago, the Neolithic inhabitants of Britain began to build what would become an iconic monument in Salisbury Plain, Stonehenge. Putting aside questions of why people built the monument, archaeologists have long wondered how they did it. Some of the enormous rocks used to erect the circular structure are thought to have been brought in from the Preseli Hills in Wales, at least 125 miles away from the site. I thought it was further, actually. I thought it was about 140.
I thought it was 140,
But I'm picking hairs. We're beginning to see so many connections between Wales and Stonehenge. Not only is it the closest rock, but there are other links as well. Jane Evans, an isotope geochemist at the British Geological Survey, tells BBC News Antonia Matthews. So this is deriving from the original story at the BBC. Now, in a new study published this month in the Journal of Archaeological Science, Evans and her team suggest a cow's tooth found buried at the site offers one of those links. It came from a Neolithic bovine jawbone initially uncovered in 1924, which appeared to be buried with care near the monument's south entrance. Scientists determined the cow in question lived sometime between 2995 and 2900 BCE in the early days of Stonehenge's construction. And this is definitely phase one. We're still 500 years away from the Sarsens, the big Sarsen stones. Yes. Going up, important thing to register there. So at this stage, it's just
we're
the
talking about a bank and
original
ditch.
ditch and bank, bank and ditch, yes, and possibly the bluestones. And by analysing elemental isotopes in one of the jaw's molar teeth, the researchers suggest they've uncovered the cow's significance and linked the animal to whales. Evans and her team sliced the 1-inch tall molar into 9 horizontal sections and measured isotopes or slight variations of the oxygen, carbon, strontium and lead contained within it. This technique gave a record of the cow's life through time, as the tooth's topmost layers were at its oldest and the layers closest to the gum had grown just before the cow died. Feel free to interject at any time if you've got anything to add on top, Rupert.
No. I think...
All right, I'll carry on, shall I?
Yes.
From the oxygen isotopes, researchers learned the tooth grew over a 6-month period during the cow's second year of life, from winter into summer. Okay, so we're talking about the cow's second year of life and the 6 months from winter to summer. The carbon isotopes revealed how the animal's diet changed over time. In the winter, it ate woodland fodder before moving to open pasture in summertime. The strontium isotopes added that the changing food type also came from different geological areas. Either the cow had moved around with the seasons or its winter food was imported. The lead isotopes, though, told the most striking story. This metal originates in geological sources and is found in low amounts in soil, so cows, for instance, can ingest it while grazing. The researchers discovered sudden increases in the tooth's lead composition in the later winter and spring, meaning the lead source in the cow's food during that time of its life was geologically older than the rest of the tooth. As such, the animal probably originated in an area with Paleozoic rocks like the ones that make up Stonehenge. They're talking about the bluestones. And in Britain, the nearest supply is found in Wales. Anything to add before I head to the finish?
I think head to the finish, and then we'll go over the points that we're...
Wales is the closest area from which you get those kind of lead compositions. That suggests this animal, found in Wiltshire, didn't start life in that kind of area, Evans tells The Guardian's Caroline Davies. It must have been grazing at some time on older rocks, and the obvious conclusion, given its Stonehenge, is that Wales is the probable origin of the cow's early life. Other Paleozoic rocks can be found in Scotland, and a study last year suggested that Stonehenge's most massive megalith was brought from there, not Wales. The question remained, though, of why a cow would have been brought to the monument along with the stones. As Michael Parker Pearson, an archaeologist at University College London and senior author of the new paper, says in a statement, it raises the tantalising possibility that cattle helped to haul the stones. The research is the first evidence to suggest animals were used to move the monument's large stones since 2018, when a study proposed that cattle carried loads during the Neolithic, according to BBC News. Even with the help of cattle, it would still have been an arduous journey for the monument builders. Moving the stones more than 100 miles would have taken 2 to 4 months, Evans tells BBC News, and involved a whole community of animals and people to support the effort. You've got to have food supplies, a turnover of people and animals to help pulling. You're probably going to have all the domestic requirements of living on the land. Team hopes to use the new techniques in future to continue to unravel Stonehenge's mysteries after this promising discovery. A slice of one cow tooth has told us an extraordinary tale, Evans says in a statement, and as new scientific tools emerge, we hope there is still much to learn from her long journey. Right. Where should we go first with the report?
Where do we start? That's a really good question. I have to say, I think, first of all, that repeat what you said at the very beginning, that we so want this to be true. And this completely fits with what we believe to be so. What we're really
taken at face value, we'd be gobbling this up.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem is that there's so much here where it says evidence for, and it's not evidence. It is, there are suggestions, but it's not evidence. In the same way that finding a cow's tooth or a cow's mandible buried in the ditch doesn't mean that cows dragged the stones. They might, that's what we want, and they might have done, but it doesn't prove that at all. It just proves that a cow from elsewhere was, or a part of it, was buried at Stonehenge. We've got to be very cautious about what we're calling evidence in situations like this.
I think the important thing to realise is the context of this paper. This paper was not written in order to do a study of and come to a determination of whether cows came from Wales to Stonehenge. The impetus for this study was actually highly academic and technical. It was purely to do with asking the question, what if we could compare strontium isotopes from the same specimen with lead isotopes from the same specimen, along with the other two that are being used in the study, and see what we can learn from that about the technique of balancing these two measures, and see if we can learn something on top of what we already know from the strontium and the lead independently. That's the purpose of the paper. And that's why in the conclusion of the paper, linked down below, in the conclusion of the paper, there is no mention of Wales. It is not encapsulated in the conclusions. The conclusions of this paper are completely directed towards whether they were successful in discerning whether the combination of strontium and lead makes something greater than the sum of its parts. A short way of putting it, I guess.
The funny thing is that the word Wales, or the name Wales, appears only once in the entire paper, and that is on a graph. And the only other place where
and in the citations
is, and in the citations, yes, but there's one paragraph in the paper which it says the Welsh and English ore fields both have blah 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 blah, and a lead source of similar age to Welsh ores. So comparing it with Scotland, they are the only places in the entire paper where anything relating to Wales is mentioned. And I think from what I've gleaned from this, and I've read the paper half a dozen times at least, because I thought I was missing something.
You too.
Because it's extraordinary that there are quite literally, if you just do a search for Cowtooth Stonehenge, and you will just get, I don't know, thousands of links, that all reporting this, and they're all saying the same thing, which is not what the paper says. You can take it as an optimistic implication, but that's really about as far as it goes. My view on this is that what it tells you, with as much certainty as you can possibly have, is that the cow did not come from southeast England. that to me is the only thing that you can say. It is complete evidence for that. But apart from that, there's all sorts of places that it could have come from. And it's intriguing that in the articles they say that the nearest place, certainly matching the strontium levels, the nearest place that it could have come from is Wales. And that's not really true either. You know, there's areas of Somerset that fit quite nicely. And, you know, it's just but the certainty in the articles is misleading.
Yes, but even taking that into account, Rupert, we're talking about stuff coming from the Preselles, which is not the nearest instance of Paleozoic rocks by any measure. Yes, the borders of Wales are the nearest, but the Preseli rocks, hundreds of miles, well, not hundreds, but a heck of a distance further on. You know, you could equally be talking about Herefordshire borders with Wales, or definitely Cornwall. So, you see, the only bit of supporting evidence, and it's not even evidence, is that the connection with Wales has already been established through the bluestones. But you can't marry the two together and say one supports the other. It's all circumstantial evidence. I mean, the way I look at it is, if you brought this to court, if the prosecution was saying, we accuse Neolithic man of, with intent and forethought, of transporting rocks to the Wiltshire Plains by means of cattle traction, the defence would have no problem in throwing this paper out if the prosecution wanted to present it as evidence, because nowhere in the paper does it actually make that claim.
No,
it infers
even though
it.
It has to be repeated. We do believe that to be the case, but it's not the point. This isn't evidence for it. No, it's very frustrating.
So, gosh, I can tell, you know, from my tone of voice and all the rest of it, it sounds like trying to put something down or debunk or anything like that. I think the thing is, we're just saying, got to be careful. That's all. This is not a proven thing through this paper. And to every single, we've trawled through a lot of these articles in the media, and all of them are misleading. We could pick them apart, you know, and actually say, no, that's not what the paper says. No, it doesn't say that at all. But that would be boring, and it would... go on.
Yes, it would. Well, I was just going to say, you know, it's not like we want to come across as being party papers or anything. It's just, if anything, we do have a reputation of keeping things real. And we did feel duty bound to just have a reality check on this. That that certainly it doesn't detract in any way from the theory. It just it nudges maybe one step further in the direction that we all believe. But evidence, it just isn't. And having said that, in fairness to the authors of this
Jane Evans.
whole piece of research, Jane Evans in particular, is that this, because it's new research using lead isotopes to show different aspects of an animal's what they're eating and their movements. It's really exciting from that point of view. It's embryonic research, and no doubt over the next years this will really be refined and will become as informative as strontium has been for the last 10 years or more. So that in itself is exciting. You know, I'm particularly interested in aspects like, so it's shown the difference between the summer and winter feeding of the animals. So basically, it's shown that in the summer periods, the animals were out in open pasture, and in the winter they were eating more woodland foods. And it's an irony, actually, that that the researchers have been really cautious in saying, that it implies that they were eating somewhere else, except that it's also possible that food was being imported for the winter months. Now, the interesting thing for me there is that, yes, that is a possibility, but it's extremely unlikely, isn't it? The huge likelihood is that the animals were taken to more clement environments during those winter months, and we certainly know that from more historical farming practices, like the sheelings, winter pastures in places like the Isle of Man, for example, where it's known that the animals were, different times of year, they were either grazed on the highlands or in the valleys. So it's that's very illustrative that it gives us that information. It's only going to get better. This level of research, it's very, very clever.
Yeah, but as it stands, the results are far too blurry, far too opaque to be able to be as certain as it's being made out that cattle came from Wales. I have to say that even within the paper itself, that there is this caveat. Listen, this is this is verbatim from the paper. A discussion of this pattern is provided below and undertaken in the knowledge that the interpretation of lead isotope data in fauna through reference to geological ore data is a substantial interpretive step. I nearly said leap, but the word is step. So even within the paper, they're saying be cautious. That sentence is saying, this is what it is, but be cautious in interpreting it.
Yeah.
And yet, we see what we see. It's really weird.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? In the same way that when it was announced last year that the Alderstone came from Scotland, somewhere in the Orcadian region, and that brought back into the frame the possibility that some of the cattle found in Wiltshire were from Scotland, because there were the strontium readings said that they could have come from up there, or they could have come from down the road. So everyone went with the probability of it probably is down the road then. So when they found that the Alderstone came from Scotland, it reignited the possibility, well, maybe the cattle did as well. And what's happened now is that we've got a cow tooth that gives you a reading that, well, actually could have been Scotland as well, but nobody's saying that in this instance, which I found quite funny. I dare say somebody might, but...
Because what we don't know about is the range and extent of cattle droving itself. Traction by cattle isn't even, I don't think it's included in Mike Pitt's book called How to Build Stonehenge. And I remember, in one passage in that, he cites somebody, an observation in the 18th century or something like that, of cattle droving, coming through that route, great hordes of cattle being brought. I think it had me thinking, if this is true, that it's not so much you gather cattle in order to bring bluestones, is you've already got cattle coming this way anyway. I might as well hook them up with a few bluestones on the way. Job done.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because we've been saying, well, forever really, we've been saying that we think cattle were involved in the moving of any of the big heavy stuff. And then it was, how many years ago now? 5-6 years ago? That
2018.
The research from Eastern Europe, from Romania and Bulgaria. So there was evidence of, so they had cattle ankle bones that showed they had been used for traction. And so that reinforced the possibility of, or the probability of cattle being used to drag big stones around. And then significantly later, but they found evidence for cattle as traction in Ireland as well when they were actually excavating a site near Dublin.
Is that published?
Do you know what? It has to be published somewhere, except that I remember it because we were with an archaeologist at Carramore who was telling us about it. And at the time, I didn't retain the actual details that he was giving me. But nevertheless, the point is they found evidence of cattle ankle bones that show that the cattle were used for traction in Ireland as well.
Study placed... sorry, Rupert, that study of the ankle bones, that's from 6000 BC in the Balkans, which is quite a distance in time away from when we're talking about. Much earlier,
but isn't that the point, though? That
exactly.
If it has been a normal way of doing things for that long,
forever and a day,
then it's not like it would have been a new thing, harnessing cattle for whatever.
So all we're saying is the conclusions make perfect sense as far as we're concerned, but in actual fact, if you look at it's not really that secure. What's being said is not that secure. It's not that helpful. It's helpful, but it's not that helpful. I think that's it. And as ever, the lesson is be wary. Just be wary, because if you get ahead of the curve, if you get ahead over your skis, declaring things, it's horrible when you have to retract them later on.
Very true.
It's horrible when things, and it confuses the public as well.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that we never publish anything for fear of it being wrong, but you just got to have your wits about you. A bit of critical thinking goes a long way.
Always have an Occam's razor in your pocket. That's my rule.
That's very good Boy Scouts advice.
Yeah.
I think we've said enough, Rupert. I think we've said enough for the time being.
We're all in favour of these results. We'd just like more evidence.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you've liked what you've seen, if you don't hate us too much for dunking a little bit on the big
party pooper prehistory guys again. Yeah,
that's right. Do please hit the like and subscribe button. Have a look at our links to our Buy Me a Coffee page and our Patreon page if you want to support us further. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching. See you very soon.
Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, not bad. Considering our memory problems.
Look at 28 minutes.
Exactly. That went on for a bit longer than I thought. Hopefully I won't have too much work to do.